Welcome to Her Discovered Power, the podcast where we try to provide every single good-hearted woman tools and knowledge that can empower and free you from so many of the emotional aspects that impact you most, from our earliest teachings and societal implications. I'm Dave Jones with Captive Coaching and Empowerment, and this is my mission and my passion because of what I've seen happen with the women in my life, including my own mother. We're here to help you be the she that you were meant to be. Hope you follow us, hope you share us, and hope you enjoy the episode.
Well, good morning, David, and welcome back, everyone, to Her Discovered Power. This is a podcast where we unpack emotional patterns that we didn't choose. They're rules that we've been living by without realizing it. And we also talk about how to start to take back our power and rewrite those rules. Today, we're going to talk about a belief that quietly shapes almost every part of a woman's life. It can affect her relationships, her boundaries, her confidence, her opportunities, even her joy. And this is the belief about what she deserves. And this is a really powerful topic, especially for women. And it hits home for me. If you've had those moments where something good has happened, and instead of just receiving it, we'll question or shrink from it, almost like we're waiting for it to go away. So, David, why do we do that as women?
Well, good morning, as always, Sherry, and thanks for doing this with me. You know, this is a topic that I almost think we can't talk about and help our good-hearted listeners enough because it's so deeply entrenched in so many good-hearted people. But I think, again, as usual, so much more with good-hearted women. You're talking about these feelings that you just introduced, and that kind of sense is not random. It's really learned. Today, we're going to break down where it comes from, why it affects good-hearted women the most, and how to rewrite it from the inside out.
So let's talk about where deserving comes from. Because, David, I know that you teach that the concept of deserving isn't universal, but inherited, which that can be a big perspective shift for people.
It really is, Sherry. You know, most people think that deserving is kind of like a moral truth, but it's actually a learned emotional rule. It's shaped by our upbringing, our environment, our culture, our religion, and the emotional rules that we absorb even before we had language to describe anything in our world.
It's scary. So what you're saying is we really didn't choose what we believe about deserving, that it was shaped before we even had the awareness to question it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And good-hearted people, especially women, well, they get programmed with the harshest version. They're taught to earn everything, apologize for everything, and feel guilty for wanting anything.
I feel that. I feel that because it has been baked in from the beginning. And that childhood programming had become the emotional blueprint for my adulthood, and basically the lens that I had seen everything through.
It's so absolutely the circumstance for so many good-hearted women, Sherry, that's why we're talking about it. You know, in my coaching, I use my Apache method, and it really comes down to getting women to understand that our concepts of deserve really comes not only from our childhood, like we were just talking about, not only taught to us in certain ways, even though may very well be unintentional, of course, but we learn them nonetheless, and they become automatic. They become predictable. They're associative. We're just conditioned with that habitual embodiment of those emotional rules that we create based on everything that we've learned. And it's not truth. It's just conditioning. I want to share an allegory with you, Sherry, and all of our listeners. And it's a story that captures how deserving really works in the unconscious emotional mind. For our listeners, and I know for you through our coaching, you hear me talk about our unconscious emotional mind a lot because it's really driving the bus of our emotional life. So the story goes like this. There was a woman who carried a cup everywhere she went. Now, the cup was small, barely big enough to hold a sip of water, but she believed it was the only cup that she was allowed to have. When people offered her kindness, she tilted the cup just enough to catch a drop. When opportunities came, she held the cup out, but pulled it back quickly, afraid that it might spill. And when love showed up, she tried to ration it because the cup was too small to hold much. And one day she met a woman who carried a large, beautiful, overflowing cup. The first woman stared at it and whispered, "How did you get that?" And the second woman smiled and said, "I didn't get it. I chose it." The first woman shook her head. "I wasn't given a cup like that." The second woman replied, "None of us were. We inherited the cup our families carried, but we are allowed to choose a new one." Now, the first woman looked down at her tiny cup. By now, it's dented, it's cracked, it's barely functional. And she had carried it for so long, she believed it was really kind of part of her body. And the second woman placed a new cup in front of her, a larger, stronger, bigger cup capable of holding abundance. And the first woman hesitated and she whispered, I, I don't deserve that. And the second woman said, "You don't deserve it because you earned it. You deserve it because you're thirsty."
Wow. That really hits home. And I feel like a lot of women can feel this without even having words for it. Another thing I felt in that was women that are moving into leadership roles can be such a great example for other women too, to just see what's possible.
I love how you put that because you're 100% right, with a caveat that so often, unfortunately, happens when somebody from a previously oppressed group succeeds. There's a small percentage of them that believe unconsciously that they not only deserve everything that they get as they're accelerating up that corporate ladder, but they believe that it was only because of them. And the only way that they can separate their worth is by now denigrating the other people of their oppressed group who are still down on the corporate ladder,
Mm,
whether or not it is a woman who has succeeded, whether or not it is a minority that has succeeded, whether or not it is a homosexual that has succeeded. And it's almost like there's this unconscious individual sentiment that says, "Hey, if I did it, you can do it. But I'm so much better that I'm not going to treat you well." Does that make sense?
yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm always like, you go, girl.
Well, that's what good hearted people do. They want to see all other good hearted people succeed and thrive. But that sentiment that I just described, thankfully, is in a lower percentage. But often I'm asked, why is it when, in this case, a woman succeeds, why is it that she can be mean to other women? And it's
Mm,
not just the women, it's anybody coming from that previously denigrated group of any type that gets to that point and believes that they have to kind of separate their worth from the other women or disabled person or a minority, like I'm talking about, that are still within their organization or within other organizations. Does that make sense?
yeah, and I'm wondering if the woman has to do that to separate herself as being different to other leaders. Because if she belongs in that other class, maybe she doesn't deserve to be where she is.
Very eloquently put. It's almost as if unconsciously they absolutely abdicate being a woman or being a minority or being the disabled or whatever previously oppressed group and absolutely attempt to make everyone around them feel as though they are now part of the majority,
Mm,
part of the men's group. Does that make
right.
sense?
It totally does. It totally does.
And it
Mm,
happens frequently, but thankfully it's not the greatest percentage.
okay.
And it's because of that. It's one of the things that shows how our unconscious emotional mind works and what the differential is between good-hearted women that we're talking about today or those who aren't good-hearted, because good-hearted women will never do that. But
Yeah.
good women, good-hearted women walk through life with those tiny emotional cups, not because they lack worth, but because they inherited the limitations. The work is not to earn a bigger cup from that allegory reference. The work is to believe that we're allowed to hold one.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've just been lucky that my mentor women are always want to pull me up. So I've just been blessed that way, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. And that's fantastic. And that's why I say that really is the majority of the cases. But there are the circumstances when I give a talk like this where I'm working with a client and I have to explain that previous position of why somebody successful does not pull their own people up. It's because it's really a question that's often experienced. Even though it's a small percentage, it's amazing how many people have already experienced somebody like that in their world.
Hmm. All right. Well, let's shift a little bit, and I want to talk about how this belief can turn a bit on us and become a weapon against us. That how deserve becomes an emotional weapon.
To me, it's really psychologically fascinating of how the unconscious emotional mind develops these rules. And as we've talked about on other episodes, it's so that the child can create these sense of what I call, as you remember, pool rules, the primary occurrence of learning. And these rules are to make sure that they remain safe within their environment, to make sure that they remain compliant with all of the boundaries and the rules that have been set around them in their environment so that they remain safe and not ostracized, not cast aside. And when a child learns that approval or that safety depends on behavior, well, the unconscious emotional mind starts forming emotional rules like if I'm good, I am given things. Notice I say given instead of earn.
Mm,
If I make a mistake, well, then I deserve punishment. If I upset someone, I deserve consequences. If I have needs, I deserve disappointment. And if I want more, Sherry, then I deserve guilt. These are the rules that become the emotional operating system that guide us throughout our entire adult life until and unless we change them and decide with help to create new rules.
wow. So when something good happens, the unconscious emotional mind basically says this doesn't match the rules, and we'll just shut it down automatically.
Absolutely. Exactly right. And that's where sabotage, shrinking, and self doubt come from.
Hmm. Well, let's talk specifically about women because I definitely think this hits us differently. So many of us were raised to be the one who keeps other people happy. So, why is it that we struggle so much more?
Well, you're exactly right. Women are conditioned to be agreeable, accommodating, pleasant, selfless, and grateful for whatever they get. They're taught and they learn by model, even if it's not intentionally taught. They learn that their worth is tied to service, not existence.
Hmm. I have felt that before. I mean, so when something good does come for a woman, say a promotion or a healthy relationship, I felt uncomfortable and I felt like I would need to justify it.
Or she feels guilty for having it, right?
Mm,
Or she waits for it to be taken away, or she shrinks so she doesn't have the ability to attract any attention, right?
mm. Saddest part. That's the saddest part. It's really good hearted women who give the most. They deserve the best things, but they're the ones that believe they're not allowed to have more.
Absolutely. And we're talking about good hearted women. Of course, that's what our podcast is all about. But I want to give you a personal example that kind of, I think, in a way, accentuates how small of an occurrence, how riddled this is within good hearted people. Okay.
Hmm.
Perhaps some of our listeners can relate to this experience, and some of you may think that this is kind of crazy, but I'm sitting in the waiting room for a doctor's appointment not too long ago, and I'm playing this game of poker on my phone. It's a great time killer that I enjoy, and I'm currently sharing on this run of having won 5 million imaginary dollars, right?
Too bad it's imaginary.
Right? And as I'm playing, I'm starting to wonder, okay, when are my cards going to start being bad that I'm dealt? I'd been on such a run, and I'm playing, but there's this almost subliminal niggling kind of feeling at the back of my mind that's saying, this can't continue. You're going to start losing again because you always do.
Mm.
And then it hit me. Even though I work with, so many of my coaching clients to help them eliminate the unconscious belief systems that they've developed over the years that create or even enhance a level of low expectations, which often lead to self sabotage, we were talking about. I realized I was doing the same thing. It's not exactly, why couldn't my luck continue in the game? And that really wasn't so much the issue, but for the same reason I teach my clients, it's not a question really of whether the luck will continue. The issue is that I'm expecting it not to continue because inherently I don't believe there is a source or a cause in my mind that would justify obtaining that continued success. Does that make sense?
Mm. It's a really good example on why it's so hard to change these blueprints on your own because sometimes you don't even notice they're there. So that's where coaching really comes in.
It does, and I was fascinated when I realized that. I was half disgusted with myself that I coach people to not do this, and then realized that on that little piece, it was still part of me. And then I realized again there was another benefit that that's a way I could share it with somebody to let them know we've always got to be vigilant on it.
Yeah.
Because when
Hmm.
a woman believes she doesn't deserve good things, like my poker game, she unconsciously automatically chooses to make a comparison there. She might choose partners who take more than they give. Okay. She unconsciously tolerates disrespect, avoids opportunities, maybe downplays her talents, right? That's a big one because we're supposed to be humble. Maybe
Hmm.
she silences her needs, right?
Hmm.
Over functioning relationships comes as a result of that. And under receiving love. Okay, she unconsciously has learned to accept crumbs and apologizes for merely existing.
Hmm. And what you're saying, that's where it really starts to show up in everyday life. It's not obvious ways, but just small decisions, what we tolerate, what we go after, what we talk about, talk ourselves out of. And it's really sad because the world loses something every time a woman shrinks herself to match a belief she never chose.
And it is done so absolutely subliminally at the basest portion of our emotionality, Shiri, in that example of my video poker game on my phone. It's that we won't even have that internal conversation with ourselves because so often we don't even realize that it exists to that level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, been there.
Yeah.
Let's shift into my favorite part of every episode. I want to shift into healing. How do women rewrite these emotional rules that we have baked in?
In my coaching, I help my clients break these emotional patterns of underserving. We work really together to realize we must rewrite the emotional rules. And I mentioned before, there are pool rules, and that's my acronym in my coaching for the primary occurrence of learning. And when I get my coaching clients to realize that we have in those early years, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, we have unconsciously created these rules that kept us again safe, right?
Hmm.
Kept us from being in conflict with our environment, with our caretakers, right? Kept us in that. And ladies, that sense of safe does not mean anything other than that little child feeling that they are going to remain within their environment, that they won't be cast aside, they won't be shunned. That's what safe there means.
Mm,
So, what I have them do is once I get them to realize this is what we all did in those early years, and it was a perfect mechanism that we did to remain safe, but that we then introduce the fact that those rules were for that time and that we now need new rules. So, I literally get my clients to make lists of their new pool rules. And as an example, Sherry, one of the old rules might be I only deserve good things if I earn them, right? We've been talking
hmm.
about that. Well,
Yeah.
the new rule really would work out well for a client is their new rule says, I deserve good things because I exist as a good hearted human being. An old rule might be my worth is conditional upon the the validation and the opinion of my caretakers, right?
Hmm.
The new rule is my worth is inherent because I am a good hearted person. The old rule might be I was always having to be perfect to deserve love. The new rule is I deserve love because I am a good hearted human being. You seeing a pattern here?
Hmm. I'm thinking as you're saying it, though, it's not just, mindset work. It has to be an emotional rewiring, right?
Oh, it very much is, and as I go through it with my clients, it's done very experientially, and often there are tears and there is emotion because when we dig down deep into it, I get my clients to really feel who they were at those early years of how they had to have these rules to remain comfortable within their environment, feel safe, and not be riddled with anxiety, even though that sometimes still happens. But the reason that emotions come out and the tears often flow, again, whether it's male or female, it is because they start to realize the tragedy that this poor child who had those rules is still attempting to feel that it has to, by the unconscious emotional mind, direct our adult life without seeing the rewards of feeling safe.
Yeah.
Without seeing the rewards of maintaining an element that it expected now in our adult life that it received in our childhood of remaining approvable and compliant. But that's not what the results are anymore. So when that emotionality comes in and we're rewriting those pool rules, it is a powerful statement. And it's that emotional rewiring that is empowering and alerting my clients to the fact that okay, we had to create those rules for safety and longevity at that time, but now we're going to allow our unconscious emotional mind, or my little Davy, or my little Sherry, we're going to allow new rules to be done to take that weight, to take that responsibility, to take that horrible weight of need off of their shoulders. And we now carry it and we start driving the bus of our adult life.
Hmm. I remember feeling a lot of, after this new learning was in place, feeling a lot of regret for wasted time. And I know you helped me rectify that because that was really the only choice I could have made at the time. But I wonder if that's a common feeling, the regret.
Oh, it absolutely is. And when I mentioned that, my clients will feel that that's a tragedy, we deal with and we discuss very in depth the grief
Hmm.
that we inherently will feel for that tragedy of that lost element between that childhood and now. And I bring it, even if they don't bring it up, I bring it up because I know that they're going to have that grief and we experience it and we share it and we really get to the point where we realize that these new rules, even though they must be repeated and embodied and reinforced, we must understand and embrace the reasons why those beliefs existed originally. And this helps with that grief because it allows us to understand and truly emotionally experience the responsibility that that poor child had during those early years. In our unconscious emotional mind, Sherry, as you have heard me say, it will not release any concept or belief until and unless we provide a reason that it existed in the first place. And that's why it's so important for me to work with my clients to get them to understand why it was so needed, that it was an ally of safety, but that it's no longer an ally of safety. And it's only upon having the unconscious emotional mind understand this that we can present the new pool rules for it to embrace and endorse. And this is one of the many reasons of the need of having a personal discovery coach help with that transition. It's so beneficial because we often think we can do it ourselves, like you have mentioned, but we need a guide to help us bypass the protections of the unconscious emotional mind that is still holding on to the belief that it has to maintain them. Does that make sense?
That was very helpful. Yeah. What about boundaries? I feel like it's one thing to say I deserve better, but another thing to live in a way that reflects that. So I feel like boundaries are where deserving becomes real.
Yes, absolutely, Sherry. And, boundaries are really the behavioral expression of worth
Mm,
because, you can't set a boundary if you believe your needs are less than worthy or they're negotiable with somebody else. And you can't enforce a boundary if you believe others' comfort matters more than our well being, right?
so a boundary is basically saying I deserve to be treated well.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. Boundaries are the proof that we believe we deserve respect or safety or time, that we deserve rest, honesty, and peace. It's what determines that we're saying not only to the world, this is what I deserve and will allow, but we're also saying it to ourselves. And when both what we're showing the world and showing ourselves are on the same page, that's where the embodiment and the integration really can take root. You've heard me say, and our listeners have heard me say before, we show the world that which we are truly trying to show self, and we hide from the world that which we are truly trying to show self. So when we get to a place such as here with boundaries, if we're authentically showing the world what we're authentically wanting to show ourselves, that's when it can take root and really make the game change and start to adopt our new pool rules.
love it. Love it. So I'm thinking that deserve needs a new definition. What is deserving really?
Well, one of the things that I do with my clients and in workshops before really talking about a definition of what deserving is, I really go over in an effort to kind of counteract and reinforce what we have been learning up to that point with that client. I kind of go over with them what it's not.
Hmm.
And so deserving is not a reward. Deserving is not a measurement. So often we have this sense that there is this outside observer that is watching us and measuring us. And it's as though we're expecting a report card from this outside observer to determine what we get, what our worth is. Does that make sense? But there is no outside observer. We're the observer. And so deserving is not earned for good hearted women. Deserving is not conditional. Deserving is inherent. And you deserve good things, ladies, because you exist. Not because you're perfect, because you're perfectly imperfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not because you're selfless, but because we're going to start having the aim with those boundaries of being healthy selfish. And you deserve good things, not because you suffered enough. You deserve good things because you exist as a good hearted human being. And the good hearted women that we always are talking to are the ones that we need to have most empowered because it impacts them the most, Sherry.
Mm. Powerful. That right there is the power women need to reclaim. And I love it. You said not earning more, not proving more, but starting to believe that you are allowed to receive more.
Allowed to receive more and without justification, right?
Mm.
Without measurement, that we can receive because we want. The thing about good hearted women that we talk to every single episode is not about what our deeds are. As a matter of fact, I often will say, and I would love every listener to really write this down when they're at a point where they can. You're not good hearted women because of the deeds you do. The deeds you do are because you are good hearted women. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
We're not there because of what we do and what we're measured and what we have think that we earn. We do all the good that we do simply a result of being a good-hearted woman. Thing is, good-hearted women were never meant to live in emotional debt, Sherry. They were meant to live in emotional abundance.
And that's where your power starts to come back. It really is. I really appreciate this conversation, David, because I feel like it can't be said enough. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. And if this episode spoke to you, please share it with all the women in your life. You never know who needs to hear it.
Or even who they know that needs to hear it, right?
That's a good
Yep.
point.
All righty. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for doing this with me again. I always say I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. And for all of our good hearted women listeners, we really are here every single episode to help get you to be the she you were meant to be.
Well, thank you, everyone. And remember, you deserve good things. And we'll see you next time on Her Discovered Power.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, David.
See you next time.